The Idol Hero, Songstress. Chapter 4, Picking Up the Pieces. Last time on Songstress. Well, recovering from major depression and long-term emotional, psychological, and physical abuse generally requires therapy. Midnight interjects. Once given the go-ahead from Nezu, Namuri turns her body a bit more toward the boy to appear more open. Overcoming social anxiety is another area you will need help in, particularly if you want to be a hero. That is what you're aiming for, right? And now we continue. The adult soul focused on Izuku as the events of the past day warred in with his long-held dream. Finally, the teenager looked between the two heroes in the room and asked in a small voice, "You really think I can be a hero?" There wasn't even a chance to take a breath before the answer came from the woman sat facing him on the bed. Yes. It would take you putting in a lot of work in many different areas, but as one of my best friends would say, you have potential. I quite agree with Midnight-san, the chimera in front of him responded next. I could give you a list of areas for you to focus on before the exam next year. But other than the therapy, I'm sure you could already figure out most of that yourself, Izuku did not miss the mouse creature's directive gaze to one of his analysis notebooks open on the floor. It had likely been thrown to the floor during his desperate bid to get All Might to stop looking at him. He briefly flushed red with embarrassment over the thought of the UA principal seeing the notebook, but inwardly sighed, as it was far too late to stop him from looking at it. Instead, he gave the principal a resigned nod. It's just a hobby. As the chimera jumped off the chair to pick up the book, another thought occurred to Izuku, which he turned to his mother to voice. Where am I going to train my quirk? I don't want to go to that counselor again. Inko's face turned from the brave, supportive front she had been putting on to a frown at the reminder of her son's previous counselor. She also apparently caught Midnight's inquisitive look, for she turned her head and explained. This previous quirk counselor was recommended by Aldera Elementary School, who, as we can see now, was worse than useless. She left the mainstay of the quirk assessment to Dr. Tsubasa, who isn't even in practice anymore. And he's the one who first told Izuku that his quirk was not suited for heroics. Please give me the name and contact information of that counselor, Midoriya-san, the mouse bear creature spoke up. What you described alone is borderline criminal. And from what we witnessed with your son today, well, his negligence put people in danger. Izuku immediately started to stammer out apologies, but Midnight and Inko both moved to quiet him down. Sweetie, his mother began. I don't think you had much control of yourself when you got home, did you? Be honest with me, please. Excuse me, one sec. At Izuku's sigh and negative headshake, she nodded and explained. What that counselor put you through, it made you stop singing. And I know you love to sing. I could see you get frustrated the longer you held yourself back, until finally you would start humming. Even that you stopped once you discovered you were doing it. And today, just before these heroes came to our door, Now tears started to roll down the green-haired woman's face. I've been worried about you for a while. She quickly put a finger up to Izuku's lips to stop him from speaking. You tend to forget I'm a nurse. I can recognize when someone's hurt. When you came home today, I saw the state of your body and saw how you looked so broken. If they had not been so insistent, I would have ignored them and demanded to know what was wrong. I was afraid of losing you. I can't lose you, Izuku. You're one of those people Nezu was speaking about. Midnight picked up as Zinko drew her son into a hug while she cried into his chest. And yes, a large part of what happened is due to how the outside world treated you. But the point we're making is the same one you just stated. You can't go back to that counselor. The results would be disastrous. The R-rated hero paused for a brief amount of time to let the two Midoriyas regather themselves. During that time, she pulled her phone out and sent a couple of texts. Sanity Sanctuary. Whip. Hisashi, I need to offer your Quirk counseling advice. Cloth. Does this have to do with the reason Nezu called you away? Mike. What's up? Whip. Oh, yeah, it does. We were just in time to witness what I believe was a Quirk evolution. Poor baby has not had an easy life, and the results could have been bad. Unbelievably bad. Mike. Gender? Whip. Undetermined. Apparently demands he, him, his. Cloth. And we're not sending him to a regular Quirk counselor. Why? Whip. Because his previous Quirk counselor was at least borderline criminally negligent. And Nezu is going to have a new target after this. A big one. Maybe even two. Or more. Cloth. Let me guess. The boy's going to be another problem child, isn't he? Whip. Let's put it this way, Shota. You and he could trade horror stories about your childhoods. You came up, without naming names, of course. Cloth. That's it. I quit. Mike. Denied. Whip. Denied. Mike. Yamuri. Why am I a good fit then? Sounds like Shota would be better. Whip. 2 words. Singing. Quirk. Mike. You know my schedule. Set me up a time to meet the little listener. Cloth. And there goes my hearing. Trying to keep the chuckle out of her voice, the teacher looked up to see that the mother and son had seemed to be pulling themselves back together. It is evident they could have continued this crying session for longer, but they were mindful of present company at least. I would bet you didn't know that UA teachers are all qualified Quirk counselors, did you? Izuku shook his head negatively and let out a very small chuckle, which the adults took as a good sign. No, I read about that online. All UA teachers are required to get their certifications in Quirk counseling within a year of accepting a position, especially those that interact with the hero courses. Every year, an average of 5% of non-hero course students and 10 to 20% of hero course students find new aspects of their powers, and in rare cases, undergo Quirk evolutions. Izuku's voice then faded into muttering. The pro-heroes then looked across the boy to his mother and winked, knowing what she was about to say would break the teen out of the mutter spree. I just arranged for present Mike to be Izuku-kun's Quirk counselor. Given Mike's quirk, I think if there is anyone that can help your son learn about his quirk, he can. And of course, that would happen either at Mike's radio station or at UA. But right now, when is more important. And true to Midnight's prediction, the mention of Present Mike and Quirk Counselor in the same sentence was enough to bring Izuku out of his mumble storm. Really? I listen to a station all the time. He was so excited the words just came pouring out of him. And Midoriya-san, Nezu interjected, looking toward the mother, although the son was also paying attention. I mentioned before about a special fund to help pay for things. This additional Quirk counseling is one of them. And on a related topic, after looking over this, I must say that I find Izuku-san's intelligence to be even higher than I thought. I have the perfect school in mind to help nurture his analytical abilities and his intelligence. I will be forwarding that information to you. At first, Inko thought to argue, but then she looked at her son and saw the awe in his face. She smiled as she saw a little hope also appear. She knew his road would be long and hard, but he finally had the validation he so desperately needed, and she would be damned if she let her son down now because of money. Okay, I want to see the school first, but if it checks out, I'll do what it takes. I'd expect nothing less. The principal accepted with a smile. On another matter, related to helping you, Midnight starts tentatively. Several times in your story, you touched on being bullied because people thought you should be a girl. Now, I'm not saying what you should be. However, it does bring up a question. What gender do you truly see yourself as? Male? Female? Neither? Or something else? Izuku's first reaction was to feel hurt. There was another person trying to tell him he should be a girl. He looked away from Midnight and found himself looking into his mother's eyes. Her face gazed up at him with love and support, but also seemed to silently mirror the question he was just asked. It was then that the way the question was asked percolated through his mind. She didn't ask why he didn't identify as a girl. She wasn't insistent that he wasn't a boy. No, she gave him a list of options. A wide open one, if he were to be honest with himself. Perhaps too wide open, as he wasn't sure what she meant by the last option. What do you mean, something else? The older woman just blinked at the question, but quickly recovered to gently ask, Izuku-kun, do you know what I mean when I say gender? She waited for a moment before the teen embarrassedly shook his head from side to side, then said, Okay, most people use the terms sex and gender interchangeably, but they're not the same. Not really. The term sex refers to your biological state, normally assigned at birth. In the vast majority of cases, that is either male or female, boy or girl. In some rare cases, mostly due to either genetic or prenatal adaptation, what may be evident at birth isn't correct. In those cases, the term intersex is most often used. This is a rather imprecise, overly generic explanation, but for now, let's go with that. At first, what the pro-hero was describing seemed rather obvious, and he was able to follow along easy. Though the intersex thing kind of confused him, but he felt he could at least answer the question. At birth, I was declared to be a boy. Most of the time, I am a boy. My quirk turns me into a girl physically. At least, I think. The confused boy looked towards his mom, hoping to get a confirmation. Inko slowly closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, then exhales slowly. The mother then opens her eyes to gaze at her son with tenderness, but with a little trepidation as well. Sweetie, there's something you need to know, she says gently as she rests both of her hands on his knee. I tried to talk to you about this before, but whenever I brought up the physical exam from your childhood, you never wanted to hear it. But Izuku, I think you need to hear it now. Will you be brave and listen to me? It may upset you, and the last thing I want to do is upset you more than you have been today, but I promise you it is important, especially to this conversation. A sense of dread filled the young brunette, and his first inclination was to adamantly refuse to hear whatever it was that his mother had to say. He didn't even register Nezu politely and quietly excused himself, with instructions to Midnight to call him back if he was not back before dealing with her line of inquiry. He did not want to hear anything about what the doctor thought. He was going to be a hero, despite what he said. But at the same time, he knew that there had to be a reason for his mother to have brought this up now. Okay, Mom, I'll listen, he replied with a heavy sigh, finally giving in to the inevitable. Still, he tensed up as if ready for some bad news. Nothing from that doctor was ever good. Your birth sex was male, just like you thought, the concerned mother started while leaning forward to take her son's hand. But there weren't any DNA tests done when you were born. So when the results of the DNA test came back after your quirk manifested, I was asked to get a hair or some other sample from before your first manifestation of your quirk for comparison. I insisted on a second opinion, as something seemed fishy to me. You remember when I asked for a small amount of your hair? Excuse me. Izuku nods, his sense of dread momentarily suspended. He vaguely remembered the request, primarily because it sparked a rare argument between mother and child. Inko did not want to tell him why she wanted the hair, only that she needed it for a consultation with a specialist. He ended up giving her the sample she had asked for. Well, I didn't want to get your hopes up at the time, but I had noticed something different about the manifestation of your quirk the last time you willingly used it, the green-haired mother explained. So I asked for a second opinion from a doctor not associated with Dr. Tsubasa. They wanted to do an in-depth physical exam as well, but by the time they asked me to bring you in, you had resolutely refused any further treatment or consultations. So in the end, we had to go by the DNA that I submitted. She paused for a moment with a complex look of worry and support crossing her face. What did they find out? Izuku finally prompted into the silence. Inko took a deep breath and said, Honey, your DNA underwent some permanent changes because of your quirk transformations. That is what they could determine. Your pre-quirk genetic markers declared you male. XY according to the results run on your hair from prior to your quirk manifesting. Without going into a genetic science lecture, your DNA has both male and female sex markers now. Izuku's eyes widen into almost saucer size as he hears this. He had declared himself a boy for so long. To hear the evidence dictated, wait, what does that mean? Am I a boy? Or am I a girl like everyone insists I am? The pro hero is about to speak up at this point, but his mother simply holds up a hand, forestalling her interruption. Izuku, technically you are intersex due to your quirk. But let me be clear on something right now, she says with a frown on her face to stall another outburst from the confused boy. You decide what you want to be. No one else does. If you were still genetically a boy but felt you were a girl, then you would be a girl. No one has any right to decide that for you. And I will have a few words with the Bakugos over that. But that will be a discussion for another time. Izuku's eyes narrow a little as he becomes even more confused than before. Okay, I know about transgenders, but all I've ever heard of them was something along the lines of girls meant to be boys. Midnight takes this moment to intervene and continue her lecture. Okay, so due to the nature of your quirk and its effect on your body, you are intersex. But as I stated earlier, sex and gender reference two different things. I'll get to the term transgender in a moment, but I think you need to understand gender before I do. To put it simply, almost too simply really, gender refers to how you experience the world, whether as male, female, or something else. Gender is how you identify yourself. You could have been born a male and experienced the world as a female or male, or some other way. So my original question to you can be stated as, how do you experience the world? Just remember, there really isn't a wrong answer here. Izuku's normal response dies on his lips as Midnight says the last part. As he considered everything that he had been told up to that point, he tried to remember what he felt every time he used his quirk, and every time Bakugo brought it up. I can't really explain it, he begins. Not because I can't make up my mind, like Bakugo says, but because it's subtle. I feel both a boy and a girl within me, but neither one seems to fit. Both women nod positively to Izuku's answer. That is perfectly fine, Izuku-kun, Midnight says with a smile on her face. It seems to me that you're just now opening yourself up to the gender question. No matter what anyone says, it is perfectly fine that you don't have a definitive answer to that question. It just means that you're still trying to figure yourself out. There are so many options for gender identity that, really, it's best that you take your time and make your mind up for yourself. But what do I say when someone asks? Midnight's soft smile grows a bit wider as she says, if you really must give an answer, tell them you're gender questioning. Most people who ask specifically about your gender will know what that means. And no, it does not mean you're being indecisive. Izuku's mother interjects with some bitterness seeping into her tone. It just means that not everything has been sorted yet. You're still looking for the true you. And no one has the right to try to rush you on that. Do you understand me? She smiles a little at Izuku's slowly increasing hopeful nod, and then says, there's one question that someone particularly sensitive to gender definitions will ask, sweetie. Before we get back to the hero discussion, this needs to be addressed. People will ask you what pronouns you prefer to be used. Midnight picks up on this as well, saying, a lot of this will be covered in therapy, but she's right on that. When someone asks for your pronouns, they're asking if you want to have masculine, feminine, or neutral pronouns used. Right now, people are using he, him, his, right? The gender questioning boy shakes his head. Right now, more people use the feminine pronouns. She, her, hers. Mostly at school, due to what the bullies say, he says morosely. But it doesn't fit me. Neither does the masculine ones. If I were honest. Izuku, honey. His mother pipes up while moving to sit on his bed with him opposite Midnight. She reaches up and starts to rub his back gently as she says, you don't have to be nervous here. No one is going to judge you, okay? She then smiles gently as she feels his back relax. Do you want to try a gender-neutral set of pronouns? Midnight asks. Izuku takes a few moments to think about that, and sighs. I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't know what I want. Do I have to decide now? Pro Hero shakes her head before replying. No, that is okay. But this is another reason for you to see a therapist. They can help you decipher what you are and what you want to be. Also, I think it might be a good idea for you to talk to people who have been where you were. She appears thoughtful before adjusting her gaze to look at both mother and son. Would either of you mind if I introduce you to some people who have faced what you're going through? In particular, I know one famous hero who I think you should meet, Izuku-kun. I won't tell you his story. I'll leave that to him. What I will tell you is that he's a well-known rescue hero. Izuku can't help but be a little nervous at the mention of meeting another pro hero, especially after what happened when he met All Might. However, he's had two pro heroes here to help him with something that he rarely heard any other heroes stopping to help with, and there was another hero waiting to help him more. He won't call me indecisive or make fun of me, right? He felt his mother's breast hitch as her hand temporarily stopped rubbing his back. After a very brief moment, she started to rub his back again in support. No, he won't. You two have a lot in common, and he regularly takes time to help transgender, gender non-binary, and gender questioning people. I promise you he will not ridicule you or shame you in any way, Midnight answers. Transgender? The teen asked, confused by the term. Alright, so quick note. I didn't know there would be this explanation in here. Earlier in the chapter, anytime transgender was said, it was transsexual. I don't like that term, and I assume it's going to be explained right here why. But, so that explains any confusion anyone has on that. Back to the chapter. Ah yes, I did say I would get into the term transsexual, didn't I? The R-rated hero replied. Transsexual is really an outdated misnomer for a term anymore, given the definition of a gender I gave you. Instead, the term transgender is used. It denotes a person whose sex and gender differ in some way. It's meant to be more encompassing than transsexual, which is all about the male and female question. Izuku nods in response and then falls silent, thinking through the adult's case of him seeing a therapist. Really, he knew he was broken. If he were honest with himself, which he had tried not to be for an exceedingly long time, he had known for a long time that he had problems. He couldn't even begin to define them, truth be told. But he knew they could impede his progress toward his dreams, if he didn't do something about it. The problem was, he didn't often view himself as worth it. He was just a kid with a useless and embarrassing quirk that everyone despised. Just a step above the quirkless. But wasn't that their whole point? Okay, I'll go to counseling. Izuku finally agreed, his voice soft but firm. He knew he'd probably question his decision later, but it looked like the right one to make now. Nezu, we're done, Midnight called out after giving Izuku a warm smile. I'm proud of you, Izuku. I know it won't be easy, and if you need to talk to someone at any time, feel free to call or text me. Okay? I'll give you my number before we leave. Inko blinked and looked up toward the hero with a questioning gaze, while Nezu came into the room. Inko-san, Midnight is going to be, for lack of a better word, Izuku-kun's case manager as coordinating resources is concerned. I had asked her to be before we knocked on your door. I know the image I portray isn't necessarily a wholesome one, Namiri interjected with a smile, having apparently keened the reason behind the mother's apprehension. But I'm happily married to two wonderful men, in a close three-way marriage. I'm also UA's Sex and Gender Studies counselor. We decided this and hope you'll accept it, because unfortunately, there are a few heroes out there who could fill the role, and only a few that would know what resources would be available for intersex children, much less those with gender questions. My image is crafted to keep people's eyes on me, and not the people I help. Inko only takes a moment to process everything told her before the tension releases from her expression. Okay, I'll allow it, she replies. Good. Now, before we move on to the final thing we'll cover today, there's one more topic I need to discuss, Nezu spoke up, looking directly at Izuku. You may wonder how I just happened to know about what happened today between you and All Might, right? The mention of All Might caused Izuku to tense up again, his eyes darting around the room. Yes, sir. I was wondering that. Well, I was going to have a meeting with him about some school business today when he got caught up with chasing some sludge villain. I was on the street near to that roof where the two of you landed when I saw him jump up in the air with you attached to his leg. So naturally, I tracked where he was going to land and made my way to the building, intending to meet him up there. Izuku's mother gave her son a frightened glare, to which Izuku returned an embarrassed look of apology. The green-haired woman sighed and nodded once, then looked to the Chimera to continue, which he did. I got up there just in time to see him transform back, and after noticing your desperation, I hid myself to listen in. I'm sorry for eavesdropping like that, but I was concerned, and for what turns out to be a very good reason. Before we go on, let me say that I'm glad you chose not to jump. Once again, tears threatened to spill down Inko's face, but she didn't say anything, instead opting to look up at her son with support. So I followed you, instead of following All Might. After you helped Bakugo-san, I again followed you. As you know, so did All Might. I tried to stop him from confronting you, but he was determined to, as I quote, make this right. He's still quite determined to correct his earlier mistake. He has some things he wants to say to you, but I told him to give you some space until you were ready. Is that okay? Izuku sighed deeply as a few stray tears started crawling down his face. I don't know. I want to know why he went back on his words about everyone being able to be a hero. But part of me is afraid. The green ant gestures around the room and says, I don't think I can take another rejection again. Not another time of being told I am worthless. That is a valid concern, young man. You've been hurt enough, I'd say, the principal replied. In my brief talk with him, he told me that he did not mean to make you think that, but he realized that he was rather hypocritical during your first meeting. We'd like to have a chance to show you how deeply he regrets saying those things. He knows words will not be enough. What does he want? The depressed teenager asked. It should go without saying that I am going to be looking very closely into Altera Middle School, as he starts his eyes settling onto the mother for a moment. And by that, I mean I will be starting an investigation. Pursuant to your son's request for leniency towards Bakugo-san, I will be looking to make him a key witness in exchange for a shot at getting into UA. Otherwise, I will be taking steps to make sure he doesn't go to any hero school. He wouldn't want another hero school. UA is the best, and that is the only school he'll consider going to, the bullying victim supplied. All the better then, said Principal of UA, smiled. One of the conditions for his admittance will be for him to testify to the teachers and staff's reactions to his bullying. But I do not anticipate this being an easy sell, given what I remember from the images we saw during that song. Inko herself shook her head sadly as the chimera continued. I know you have words of your own you'd like to express to the Bakugos about what happened to your son. Even though I know it will be hard, I would suggest Izuku-san be there as well. If for no other reason than to make a clean break from Bakugo-san. That, of course, is up to him. But there will be heroes present there, me and Midnight included. No, he wouldn't try anything in front of my mom there, but why do you want me there? And what does this have to do with All Might? The nervous boy inquired. If the Bakugo parents do not believe your claims, we may give you authorization to use your quirk to provide the proof. Between now and then, please think of a song that won't have such a grand scale of effect as the one you sang today. Maybe the one you sang for All Might? The rat bear thing started. It doesn't feel right, but I'll think of one. Teen interjected. Nodding, the creature added. All Might would like to be there for your support, Midoriya-san. He wants to show that such behavior is unacceptable for anyone in society, much less someone aspiring to be a hero, like you. Again, his words. He feels adding his input may provide the impetus needed to get Bakugo-san to agree to the terms I will be laying out in front of him, which will seem rather harsh. For a moment, the greenette teen wanted to argue for more leniency to his tormentor, but the memory of the boy calling him a villain stopped any such request cold. He really needs help, Survivor finally said. If I have to go to counseling, then he should too. He needs it more than me. It's not a matter of who needs it more, the masked briar creature said understandingly. But I do agree that he does exhibit some very unhealthy tendencies that need to be addressed. And I will be addressing them, Inko-san. He added, turning his attention toward Izuku's mother again. I know full well the kind of wrath a mother protecting her child can feel and display. I will not ask you not vent your anger toward the Bakugos. I only ask that you wait until that meeting to do so. I will contact you with the details of when and where, but I fully intend to have that meeting no later than a couple of days from now. Can you please hold your temper for that, Mom? Or do you have plans to meet up with them between now and then? Ika looked like she very much did mind waiting. Thank you very much. The glare she directs at the UA principal shows the full extent of fury she feels at the moment. But she takes a deep breath and lets it out slowly before saying, I suppose you would like me to refrain from tearing into the staff at Aldera as well? And as a single nod, the wronged mother closed her eyes and appeared to be counting to 10 in at least 2 different languages. I do not have any plans to talk to the Bakugos between now and a couple of days from now, but I am sure you know full well how spontaneous conversations happen between best friends. So I'll ask you to hurry, because I cannot guarantee civility toward my best friend right now, should she call. Izuku's mother fell silent again, as if trying to keep herself calm before saying, That said, I'm normally not the best in confrontations, and I will need to go to the school tomorrow to remove my son from that school. So I'll tell you now, I'm feeling an uncharacteristic amount of rage toward everyone involved in hurting my baby today. And yes, honey, that includes All Might, she adds as a side note towards her son. She gives him an apologetic look before continuing. I want your assurance that All Might is appropriately horrified and apologetic for what he's done. I want you to explain to him in no uncertain terms. and I expect an apology to my son to be among the first words he says upon meeting him again. Are we clear? Mom. Excuse me. Crystal, Nezu said with a nod. I intend to talk to him about this in depth anyway. But I was going to leave Izuku's specific circumstances out of it. For your request, though, would it be alright for me to discuss it with him? Yes, but only as much as is necessary to get him to understand the extent of the negligence he's displayed today, was the answer provided. She gave her son's hand a squeeze before saying, Then I will try to be as civil as I can. Instead of tearing into them as I so want to do. If asked why I'm transferring him out of their school, I will simply say that I found a better fit somewhere else. But I will need the information about the school you will be recommending, won't I? Unfortunately, in that scenario, yes. Instead, Nezu replied with a grin, it might be better to say you're moving to another school district. And you haven't decided on a school yet. That way you can get your hands on the official records. And do not let them say they will need more than a few minutes to prepare them. They have the records on disk ready to print or review at a moment's notice. Understood. The furious mother nodded. So is there anything else? Just one more thing, Nezu said with a smile as he turned his attention to the boy he came to save. I've compiled a list of things you will need to do to prepare for entrance into UA. I need your email address to send them to you. I want you to keep in touch with Midnight Sun, not just for any assistance needed, but also to check in to see how you are doing. That is one reason she will be there for the confrontation with the Bakugos. Can I trust you will do this, Izuku-san? Before you answer, Namiri interjected, reaching up to take her face mask off to look as open and sincere as possible. Doing this isn't just a job for me, Izuku-kun. I think you are a very gifted, special person that is worth helping. It would be my honor and a privilege to help you through all of this. Why? The intersex teen asked, confused. I mean, you can't afford to do this for everyone. Why me? The same question appeared to be mirrored in Inko's case as well. Part of it is that you remind me so much of my best friend, one of my husbands, when he was a child, the unmasked woman says with a look of melancholy on her face. I couldn't help him then. I don't know how. Your childhoods are so alike, it's almost scary. Nezu bowed his head and let go of his breath slowly as the hero explained this. But you also remind me of him in good ways. Your desire to put the world in front of your own needs. Your desire to be there for others in ways that no one was there for you. Even your bravery despite being so broken. All these things remind me of him. All these things are traits you possess. And the underlying selflessness inside is something that resonates inside of me. I can't help but to want to help you for that alone. The other part is that I genuinely feel a certain comradeship with your mother when it comes to protecting and helping. The hero continues as she looks to his mother, find her nodding along with her. She's ready to go to war for you, but she said it herself. She's not particularly good at confrontations. I am. In the short time that we've known each other, I've grown rather attached to you, and want to make sure you grow up to be the hero I know you can be. And for that to happen, you need people in your corner who care about you and your well-being. I feel that way, and want to help you by being that support. But Nezu said he'd discuss this with you before you came in, the teen said. Yes, he did. I'll admit I was going to help you anyway, because it was my job to do so. But what I'm saying is that This has become personal for me. Will you let me help you? Yes, Midnight-san, the scarred teen replied after a few contemplative moments. When the mask is off and we're not in public, call me Namiri, she says with a wink toward Inko. Hi, Namiri-san. Alright, y'all. I really hope you enjoyed the chapter. Still sick, so I know my voice isn't top notch, but I really hope y'all enjoyed, and I can't wait to see y'all in my next video. Ciao for now.